Hi-ho, sports fans. EDCI 704, week 3 video. Dr. Palermo. Week 3 runs June 3rd to, I don't know, June 6th through 12th. But the big deal is that we're going to be together in our face-to-face meeting this weekend at Wayne Community College in Goldsboro, June 9th and 10th, and I am looking forward to a slam-packed weekend full of fun learning with you. You do have some readings to do this week. I've moved most of the discussion posts to face-to-face activities that we'll do this weekend, and we are going to be busy. If you are, well, again, I'm going to be meeting with you this weekend, and then Dr. Greer next weekend. But for me, be ready to start at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, please. We'll probably run like 9 to 4 or 5, 4 on Saturday. And then depending when you want to start Sunday morning, do plan to go into the afternoon about 2 o'clock or so on Sunday. We'll do some dissertation prep work on Sunday afternoon. But in the meantime, a lot of our time this weekend is going to be face-to-face activities, and I'll be presenting a lot of stuff to you about the data-informed decision making. You are already action researchers, whether you know it or not. When you do complete a comprehensive needs assessment for your school or for a district, you are practicing continuous improvement, and that in a way is a form of action research. You're tinkering. You're finding a need and putting some plan in place to see if that will result in more effective or better results for kids, more student achievement, whatever the focus might be. But you're action researchers. As you're reading Cresswell and starting to understand qualitative and quantitative and mixed methodologies, I hope to clarify for you this weekend the distinction between being tinkerers and practitioner researchers, educators who are playing social scientists, and true experimental designs. Folks, we are not scientists in lab coats, and we are not dealing with rats running in a maze. We have human beings that we work with in schools. And human beings come to us, as we know as social scientists, with lots of different baggage and also lots of wonderful gifts. But in order to be able to say something about the world, in order to be able to examine the world and a theory, hopefully a theory of learning or of the world, and to say something new in our research about the way the world works, about student achievement, about schools or culture or people who work in schools. In order to be able to do that, there are different schools of thought about research. Some take a more qualitative approach and look at phenomenology or case studies. I took more of that kind of approach. Some want to be more scientific and really have a meaningful statement at the end in order to be able to say that something is statistically significant and that if you did this and found this with your sample in this school, that will then generalize to a larger population. And if this reading program worked for me in my school, then it should work for you in another similar setting. And usually that's a more quantitative approach, a more truly scientific experimental approach. And it might involve hypotheses or a null hypothesis, and you may be crunching numbers in order to prove that something is statistically significant, and that you can look at a bell curve and that you can find z-scores that would indicate that the findings that you came up with using your survey or using your student achievement data are statistically significant. In other words, it wasn't something that was just random. That's the whole point here. In more scientific, quantitative, not necessarily better research, you should be able to infer something from this small sample to a larger population. And that's the gold standard in research. Folks want to be able to say something about all schools, or all elementary schools, or all third graders. And you might have a better chance of saying that and being able to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt with statistics in a quantitative approach. Usually our qualitative approaches are more case specific. And again, as an example, I had some statistics in my dissertation. I had worked with 33 or 35 or so assistant principals. I had surveyed them. So when I took their survey results and crunched the numbers, I was finding mean averages. I was able to say that this was an outlier and didn't fall within the curve. And I was presenting that in charts and graphs in descriptive statistics. But all I could really say was I could describe that mentoring program in Wake County schools and say that this was true of those 35 assistant principals who had experienced a mentor and who had found that caring, helping relationship to be helpful in their own work. So again, you take away from that what you want to. I found something that was significant in my little study, but that would not generalize necessarily to others. And I could not say beyond a reasonable doubt that I hadn't achieved those results just by accident. And that's kind of the crux of some of the difference between qualitative and quantitative methodologies. In a mixed method, sometimes you can use words and numbers and mix them up. And some of that is open to interpretation in terms of names and naming this stuff. Some folks would have called my study mixed methods. Yeah, I preferred to describe it as qualitative because in my mind it brought the bar down about proving things. It enabled me to say that this is what I found in this one instance. And it may have been a phenomenon that was unique to that one instance at that one time in that county in that mentoring program. You know what I mean? Well, I hope you get it. You are an action researcher. You're tinkering and doing lots of quasi-experimental research in your schools to try to find out something about life, about school life, and trying to better understand and explain the world, hopefully in terms of a theory. So you might have noticed that your assignments in Cresswell jump around. You started with chapters 1 and 9, the introduction and qualitative stuff. You went to chapter 3 about theory. And now you're coming back with the assignment this week to read chapter 8 on quantitative methodology. What did I want to say about quant? Well, if you don't read any further, do read the first page there. It summarizes things pretty well. And here, Cresswell talks about a survey design and how that can be a quantitative methodology. I used a survey in my qualitative methodology, which again, maybe it was more of a mixed methods design. Make sure that you have at least a passing familiarity with the concepts of validity and reliability. I expect my colleague, Dr. Greer, to dig and dive much deeper into quantitative methods when she meets with you next week. Do read chapter 8. Do know that it is about testing statistical significance oftentimes, and later you will learn more about hypotheses, variables, and null hypotheses. But good stuff. Cresswell, again, is your Bible, and this is the latest edition of the Bible. You'll want to quote Cresswell later when you are describing your methodology in chapter 3 of your dissertation. So read that with your thoughts in mind. Which of these methodologies, which of these approaches, qual, quant, mixed, really sounds like me? This is my voice. Find your voice and determine whether you're going to be a qualitative or quantitative researcher, please. Erdan, what's normal? Well, again, when I read chapters 4 and 5, I realize that I use the bell curve in my little qualitative study because I was looking at mean averages for those survey questions, and I was describing the mean average, and I was putting it into histograms and pie charts, really simple descriptive statistics that I could generate myself using Excel. I did have help from a teacher at my school who helped me with Excel, but we did that all in-house. I did not send my study out for statistical analysis, and that is doable. So what is a bell curve? What's the normal distribution? You use this stuff all the time if you're looking at test scores, at the achievement scores or formative assessment scores. And oh, by the way, who determines what the scale is going to be and what's normal? It used to crack me up when the state renormed things and just slid the bell curve over to the side. Okay, so you're reading Cresswell, Chapter 8, Erdan, Chapters 4 and 5 about normal distributions and bell curves. Again, you'll hear lots more from Dr. Greer about statistics. PE, you should be reading Fitzpatrick, Chapters 12 and 13. Here's what I know about the PE, A, B, and again, you got to read Fitzpatrick closely to really get some of this stuff. But you've written a PEA. You might think that your planning is done. You're going to need to do a deeper dive in PEB into the planning. You're not actually implementing the program evaluation in summer. You're diving deeper into the plan. Why? First, you need to think divergently, lots of different ways about who are the stakeholders, how are they involved. Refining the program plan means thinking a lot about how you set boundaries for your program description. What's the theory behind it? What existing information do you already have? And really, how are the questions going to be assessed? What are your research questions, or how are you assessing this program? What are your research questions? I urge you to dig deeper and to think some more about that. What criteria are you using to assess your research questions? So we're going to dive deeper into the PEB plan. And that's in chapters 12 and 13. There is a PE planning worksheet that we will use together when we're meeting this weekend. But take a look here. Please do this stuff, and then I've moved a whole bunch of it over to our meeting space here, including some dialogue posts. Don't dive into those just yet. I'll tell you what you need to do later, probably a post about the PE so that we know you're on track with that stuff. So lots of things that we will discuss in class. This weekend is going to be quantitative, wrong. Qualitative methodology, Deming and continuous improvement, PEBs, CNABs, and PLCs. A little bit of an introduction to PLCs too. Whew, that's a lot. Make sure you bring lots of caffeine, extension cords for your wireless or your laptops and devices, sweater in case you need it in the air conditioning. I hope you have a great rest of the week. I look forward to seeing you this weekend. Bring lots of caffeine. See you then.